Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche. Done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tide. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
He didn't get fired. He didn't get fired. No, he didn't get fired. He never got his contract renewed.
Welcome to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I'm Pawel, the cat, with my beautiful co-host joining me for season 5, episode 25 of the podcast. Evan, how you doing?
Hey, doing good, guys. Evan Rev Runners here with you. You can follow us for Pawel at hockey_2, or you can follow us on X for myself at REV and EV. I even got my Oilers REV and EV nick on them. So yes, I am an Oilers fan, but I want to tell you, I am a hockey fan, everything around hockey, and we got some great stuff going on today, including a guest. But why don't we come at you right now with our first sponsor, who's sponsoring our show here tonight, the Sports Empire Network. So for all of your podcast needs, you can go through NBA, MLB. You can get into the wrestling scene, WWE. You know, people don't remember. It used to be WWF. Get the F out, and it became WWE because the World Wildlife Federation thought that they were taking away from their business somehow in wrestling. I have no idea. So anyway, NBA, football, NFL, you name it, they got your needs.
Can we just say we've got a record viewership right now of 55 people tuning in. So get ready for a wonderful guest headliner.
Hey guys, we just want to welcome today James Eichelbone. He is the president and host of the Flyers HW. He just got off his show. He's late like us. He runs overtime. He is also with Fan Hockey and also with Dover Prospects for the Isles and the Flyers. Man, thanks so much, James, for joining us tonight.
Boys, thank you for having me. I'm extremely excited to hang out, and I apologize for being late there, but extremely excited to hang out with you guys and talk some puck.
We got a lot of eyeballs on us tonight. So the first question we ask every guest that comes on the show, is there a moment in your life that made you fall in love with the game of hockey, or was there one moment that you saw the game and you're like, I got to get involved in this?
Yeah, so I probably, like most fans, grew up watching the game with, my dad, brother. Flyers were always good growing up, and so they were easy to fall in love with. Unfortunately of late, it's kind of been the opposite, but it seems like they're turning things around. But yeah, my earliest memories of falling in love with the sport was probably watching games with my father and my brother. And like I said, Flyers made it easy with Lindros, Leclerc, Desjardins, guys like that, Broad Street Bullies and whatnot. So easy to fall in love with. And, it's brought me here talking with you guys. So, I love everything about it.
That's pretty amazing. So, go ahead, Evan.
No, that's okay. I was gonna say, you're just gonna make us all blush here, James, man. We're honored to have you on here tonight, chatting all things hockey, man. So guys, if you got any questions, you make sure you throw them in the chat, especially around the Flyers here tonight. So let me just kind of throw this out there really quick for all those Flyer fans. There's gonna be some late, and they're gonna ask you questions as well. Might be the same ones. We'll tell them to come back and watch this part. But your all-time favorite Flyer, and we can get those two words mixed up, and tell us why.
Oh, that's an easy one for me. I think a lot of people would expect it to be Eric Lindros maybe, but it's Mike Richards, hands down. Loved watching him play. He's a heart and soul guy. He had maybe bottom 6 work ethic with skill. He was a guy that would do anything for anybody on the ice. He could do it all. He was a winner, a passionate player, a leader, in my opinion. I had so much fun watching him, and I'm fortunate that he couldn't win a cup with the Flyers. But actually, it's funny because I tweeted something out earlier. I don't usually root for former Flyers to go on and win cups because I would like to see them win it here. But Mike Richards was a guy, man. When he lifted that cup, I was really, really happy for him.
It's incredible to hear, yeah, because I and someone in the chat mentioned, Jordan, that I am also a bit of a fanboy of the Flyers. That's my team out east. I do like the Oilers here because I'm out here in Edmonton. But I got to say that Ron Hextall is one of those, like, forgetting his GM highlights, whether good or bad, he was probably one of my favorite players on that team. Just the way he played and the ferocity that he brought, some of the fighting he got into. Yeah, it's interesting. So I guess let's get your take on the Flyers, on Danny Briere. We know there's been a lot of clout with everything happening with Carter Hart and his contract being terminated at the end. But beyond that, you guys put a few players on waivers. You know, Cal Pedersen has been on waivers. You've brought in some young players. You've had some healthy guys stay healthy. You know, Cam Atkinson, Travis Konechny, I'm looking at you. One of my players that has really emerged, and I really liked him when I saw him when he was younger, is Owen Tippett. Your thoughts on the overall system that both Danny Briere and John Tortorella are building amongst everyone else in that organization?
Well, I think what's easy is, first and foremost, the Flyers are watchable again, right? And it sounds like such a low bar, but when first and foremost, I think you're a fan of the game. When you're a fan of the Flyers or whatever team you enjoy watching. They've been so hard to watch the last decade, especially the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm talking about last year, just to be able to watch a Flyers game and enjoy watching them again was huge for me. Because they were very unenjoyable to watch. It was like I would rather watch paint dry most nights. And I'm being nice, to tell you the truth. But since John Tortorella's taken over, he's instilled his personality into the team. You know, if you're not going to work, you're not going to play. And Tortorella sort of embodies Philadelphia. You know, he's sort of a blue-collar coach. It's, you know, you need to work and play responsible hockey first and foremost, play defensive hockey. You need to learn how to play in the NHL first and foremost. And so that's what a lot of these players are doing. You've seen guys like Travis Konechny, who were good before, but are even better now, almost a point-per-game player the last 2 years combined. Joel Farabee's taken huge steps this year, career highs in goals, assists, and points. Owen Tippett is a guy who the Flyers just traded for, 2 years ago now, for Claude Giroux. Yeah. Flyers fans weren't overly thrilled with that trade. You know, I think they got it was a first-round pick and Owen Tippett, I believe. Yeah. Owen Tippett was a reclamation project, and he's working out for the Flyers. He had a highlight reel goal, maybe a potential goal of the year candidate goal a few weeks ago. And he's a guy that John Tortorella really likes. You know, and we know that he's not usually, crazy for these young kids. But Owen Tippett's a guy. Tyson Foerster's another guy who I think surprised a lot of people. In the sense that he's playing the responsible brand of hockey, and it's not that it's come easy for him, but he's made it sort of look easy to play in the NHL. Known more for his shot and his offensive abilities, it's now all coming around. He's putting it all together later on in the season. And I think that's kind of what you want to see from developing players. You want to see them kind of get better as the season goes on. Tyson Foerster's a great example of that.
So why don't we do this? So I know people are anxious. It's the NHL trade deadline. So we talk 70, 80% NHL, other things around the league. Tonight, most of everything is going to be centered around the NHL. That's where the excitement is, the trade deadline. The Flyers have been active. What I'd like to do is have you update us, everyone, right now on the Flyers activity here already today, and kind of tell us what you think is we should be looking at moving forward here.
Wow. So what a day for the Flyers. I think a lot of us, especially in Philadelphia, we kind of have PTSD from the last couple trade deadlines. We've had to sweat it out to the very last minute and then, ultimately be disappointed. And James Van Riemsdyk comes to mind, who somehow was not able to be traded last year. And this year we're they're making moves 2 days before the deadline comes. And, we'll start with Sean Walker, I guess, who was sort of a throw-in in the Ivan Provorov deal from last year. And my first thought was, I've watched Sean Walker, so I'm sure you guys have too. And this was a guy that he knows how to play the game, and it sounds dumb to say as an NHL guy, but this was a guy I thought, okay, the Flyers can do something with this guy.
Right.
Maybe Los Angeles couldn't necessarily use him because their defense core is a little bit more developed, but the Flyers acquired him, and I'm like, all right, well, this is a guy that they can, give a shot and see what he's actually capable of. And credit to Sean Walker, played his butt off. He's playing his way into probably a pretty big deal this summer, and the Flyers were able to recoup a first-round pick for him. I believe 2025 was the pick they got. But I think most fans thought, okay, this was just a toss-in. It was a cap dump for Los Angeles. And here you go, Danny Briere's turning him into a first-round pick. So very excited, very happy with what Briere was able to do with Sean Walker. If I can real quick, I have the return for Ivan Provorov and what it now looks like. Total return. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's that look like?
Yeah, sure. So total return just for Ivan Provorov ends up being the 2023 first, which they used on Oliver Bonk. Now the 2025 first in return for Walker. It was a 2024 second, which they traded to draft Carson Bjarnason, the goalie, in 2023 draft. They have a 2020. They have a conditional pick from Columbus, which they can use this year or next. It's up to Columbus, whatever one they want to give. They got Helge Grans from Los Angeles, Cal Peterson, which is an actual cap dump, and then Ryan Johansson, which we'll see what happens there. He was waived shortly after the trade. Apparently, he didn't get along with Tortorella too well, so we'll see what happens with Ryan Johansson. But that's a lot.
Yeah. Wow.
And we have some questions from the audience. So before you get to that, to Evan,
go ahead, man.
Just to add a few comments, because you've led off a lot, so we can get into a lot of different ways, including goaltending. But one of the questions that's really emerged is Jordan is asking, as a Flyers fan, are you happy to see that Johnny Hockey, so he's referring to Johnny Gaudreau, didn't sign in Philadelphia now that he and the Jackets are struggling? And Jack Smith just commenting on your thoughts on saying Walker got a first. Woo! So that's right. But your thoughts on Johnny not signing, because that was kind of the rumor, and that when there's smoke, there's fire, and there's definitely a lot of push for that narrative happening before he signed in Columbus. Your thoughts on that?
Sure. So Jack Smith is my co-host, and I thank him for chiming in and watching the show here. Thanks for the support, Jack. He's a good dude. So Jordan Roberts' comment there about Johnny Hockey. So I'll be honest, I was all for signing Johnny Gaudreau. It was a different regime, a different direction. Chuck Fletcher was the GM. The goal was to add now, go for it now. And Gaudreau's a superstar. He was a superstar. He was playing very well in Calgary, wanted to play in Philadelphia. It was, it just doesn't happen like that anymore, where star players want to play in Philadelphia and sign here as free agents. It sounds crazy to say, because back in the day, the Flyers were, picking up everybody like that. Jeremy Roenick, you name it. And so these days, you don't see that very often. Like Kevin Hayes was the most high-profile free agent signing for the Flyers in, I don't know, maybe the last decade. And no offense to Kevin Hayes, but, so when I heard Johnny Gaudreau wanted to play here and the Flyers weren't able to get it done, I was disappointed. Now, it's easier to look back and say, well, thank God they didn't do that, because look what's going on now. So now I guess I'm grateful that, sometimes the best move is the one that you don't make, and that's certainly looking like that's the case there with Gaudreau.
Awesome. So before Evan gets to his next question, I guess let's talk a little bit about the goaltending, because whatever happens with Carter Hart, we can't know until whatever happens in the London trial and everything else. But we know the contract's ending along with the other players. But your thoughts on both Samuel Ersson, who's been really good for the team, although it's a lot to put the pressure on him, but everyone else coming in, and the one goalie that we talked about, the name escapes me, the Russian who got reported for duty for Russian military. Your thoughts on with this prospect coming over from the trade with Ivan Provorov, is there something, or is Philadelphia sneakily maybe going to make a trade maybe for a Markstrom?
So I don't know if we're going to be seeing any trades I mean, I haven't heard anything as far as that. I think if they do, so I'll say this first and foremost. I think they believe in Sam Ersson. I think they believed in him since last year. This whole Carter Hart thing, they knew was coming. I think the organization was prepared for what happened this year, just judging by the moves they made. So they extended Ersson over the summer. They gave him a contract extension for 2 more years after this year, which kind of signaled to me, okay, Ersson maybe looks like a guy. He's going to be on the NHL roster for the foreseeable future. And they go out and draft 2 goalies in last year's draft, 2 very good goalies. Zavragin, who's playing in the Russian VHL. I think he's got a goals against average under 2 and maybe lost 1 time all year. Obviously, Carson Bjarnason, who I think had a little bit more of a rougher season this year, but still highly touted. He was their 2nd-round pick. And I think the goalie you're thinking of is Ivan Fedotov, who something with the Russian military. It was all we were talking about for like a month or 2 straight, and now I can't even recall what exactly happened.
He technically didn't properly serve his time in the Russian military,
right?
And he had planned to transition to America to get into the AHL to get some time in,
Right.
And he ended up playing for a team there, and he ended up being recruited for the military. But Evan can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, the Fedotov, you guys can go into 2guysinhockeytalk.com and pull up. So our Russian writer, Patrick Conway, actually did an article around that. If you guys want to go back and check that out. There was some stuff that happened with the Russian government where it was a technicality that they pulled him into. Essentially, they'll be lucky to ever get him out of Russia now. And it's going to be past that prime, right? They needed him in his prime. That's essentially what needed to happen. And with everything happening with the war and stuff, like, what do you do now, right? That's the tough part.
For sure. And I think there was talk about his contract being told. And I haven't followed up on what happened with that, but I don't believe his contract was told. So he ended up signing an extension with his Russian team. And there was a whole disagreement there because the Flyers felt they should have still had him for at least 1 more year because he had to serve in the Russian army during the last year of his deal. So I have to follow up and, make sure that because it doesn't seem like he's coming over at this point. There is another Russian goalie, Alexei Kolosov, who is having a very good year. I believe his team is in the playoffs or they may be eliminated at this point, but there is talk that he may come over at the end. As long as his season expires with enough time left in the NHL season, he could come over. He is signed to an ELC. So I imagine that we'll definitely see him next season, if not by the end of this year.
And we'll get into it. We have some questions. We have a very engaged audience, Evan. I'm sorry.
No.
Early questions. So Mitch God is stating Michkov is coming, and Jordan kind of adds to that, asking what happened to Cutter Gauthier, and are you a little bit worried about Michkov, and do you think there'll be fair value if they end up trading him? So your thoughts on Michkov and his kind of progression, his development, and potentially coming over even next year. Your thoughts there, and I'll let Evan ask the next question.
Yeah, so I mentioned Flyers haven't had a superstar player in a long time, and Michkov is every bit of that. You watch him in Russia and what he's doing over there is as an 18-year-old, it's sight to behold. We couldn't believe it. We had a little draft party during last year's draft, and we were all kind of ticking off players off the board. When Will Smith went, it was like, all right, Michkov's 1 pick closer. And then Reinbacher went, and you're like, Michkov's going to be a Flyer? And, Briere went up to the podium, and they took him. And, I don't know when he's going to come over. The Flyers are making it sound like it's not going to be the full 3-year wait. He is under contract with it's not Sochi. I think it's St. Petersburg? St. Petersburg. I have to double check the team. It's the military team. I know that. He's got a 3-year deal with the team. It's, to my understanding, he's going to play out the deal. But some of the comments that people within the Flyers organization are making it sound is they're going to try to get him over before the 3-year contract is up. I'm not sure how that's going to work. There was a story with Malkin and how Malkin came over. It can be done. Whether it's legal or not, I'm not sure. So
he's on loan right now for HK Sochi, but he was playing for the SK St. Petersburg.
Okay.
He only played one game. So he got loaned over to Sochi, where in 47 games, he's got 19 goals and 22 assists.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Awesome. Let's go back just because all the rage and talk right now is around the trade. Let's go back to the Sean Walker thing. I've been in back and forth with a lot of people, and it's always interesting. I think that they did a great. So Jack, I believe is Jack is your co-host, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, talking. And so when he was just saying, "Hey, great, we got a first," it's because there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's just going to get a first straight out." And I have to say, there was no way when I saw Tanev go and he's not getting at first. And I was like, I just can't see Walker getting a first on his own. But it was really creative how they take on Johansson, which gets them that because they're giving relief to another team. And essentially, it doesn't really affect Philadelphia, other obviously than cash flow and stuff. But as far as it fits within their cap, they're able to, whether they waive, they don't waive, they keep them up. That was a real creative piece by Briere.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny because we had mentioned that on our show earlier today. We were so used to just vanilla trades with Chuck Fletcher, doing just the obvious moves or, sometimes waiting too long. And, it's just a lot of what he didn't really make sense for the now and for the future. So to have a GM like Danny Briere in his first year, and they groomed him for this. This is not just a former player, sitting on the couch and the Flyers are going, he was a Flyer before, let's make him GM. He was groomed for this position. They sent him to business school, a school in Philadelphia, Wharton School of Business, which is very, highly touted business school. So he was groomed for this role. And, whether we should be surprised or not, he's been very creative. He was the Cutter Gauthier deal, for example. That's a position he wasn't supposed to be in. He made the best of it, getting a guy like Drysdale on a second-round pick. The Ivan Provorov deal, which we talked about, and it's the never-ending deal. Like, you just keep getting more for it. And this one today with Sean Walker, I thought the same thing you did, Evan. After that Tanev deal went down, like Tanev didn't get a first. Wow, is Sean Walker going to get one? I don't know. So to find a way, which I think is something I look for in players, coaches, GMs, find a way to get what you want. And that's what they did today. Taking on Ryan Johansson. We'll see what happens with him too. I'm still intrigued. Is he going to report to an AHL team, or how's that going to play out? Regardless, they found a way to get the first round pick.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about the Tanev thing is that there was a first offered from reporting. It's just Calgary decided not to accept that and not to accept the player that came along because they didn't want to hold on to that expiring cap that was coming with it, right? So they went with Dallas with what they believed was the best choice. But there's definitely an interesting take with the moves that were made today, given the story, both for Sealer and Walker. So we'll see how the Flyers go. What do you think, if anything, is left to do for Danny Briere by tomorrow? Because we still have a full little over 24 hours before the trade deadline ends. And we always know some of the trades trickle in right after. What do you think he can do, would do, or should do?
Sure. So there's a lot of I think people are more so afraid more than anything in Philly because we haven't really been how do I say this? Management hasn't exactly been honest the last few years. They'll say one thing and sort of do another. And, there's just a lot of mistrust, and it's really affected the fan base. If there's one thing I can say about Flyers fans is they're smart. They realize the thing that I think probably most fans want from an organization is just honesty. Right? Because we know only one team can win the cup every year. We know what a cup contending team looks like. I mean, Edmonton is a cup contending team. Are the Flyers even close to Edmonton right now? No. So just be upfront and honest with us. And we didn't really get that. We didn't really hear much of anything from Ron Hextall when he was here. And Chuck Fletcher, the Flyers were very corporatized the last however many seasons. And there was a huge disconnect between the organization and fans. So huge credit to Keith Jones and what Danny Briere and John Tortorella, because even he's been honest with fans. He doesn't hold anything back. And that's been their biggest difference so far is the honesty. So I think it came out on maybe one of the Elliot Friedman shows that the Flyers would explore a backup goaltender. So if there's one of those guys out there, they would do that, and I would be fine with that because right now, Felix Sandstrom is their backup. Cal Peterson was up for a game and got absolutely shelled against Pittsburgh, unfortunately, because I was rooting for Cal Peterson, not just because he's a Flyer. You know, it would be a feel-good thing to see him kind of turn it around. Didn't happen. It was sent down the next week. Felix Sandstrom was given an opportunity and played really well in the game. He came up. I believe he got the win. I can't recall against who. But he's another guy. The Flyers have had him in the system for a long time. You'd like to see it work out. But I think they will explore looking for a cheap backup somewhere. And I think it was also rumored they would look for inexpensive depth if it made sense in the forward group. Having said all that, they were connected to Jacob Chikrin in some capacity today, which was surprising to me. Briere was on record. Even Keith Jones had said on some local podcast that, they will try to thread the needle. Obviously, they're going to be sellers first and foremost, and they did that with Sean Walker. But they'll also try to add, cheap depth because the players deserve it. They're in a playoff spot right now. You want to reward them in some sense. You don't want to just tank the season now. It would kind of stink. So Briere was on record as saying they're not going to be moving any premium assets. So when the Chikrin stuff came out, I was a little surprised because you figure that's a guy that you're going to have to move premium assets for, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe things change on a dime like that. It's a silly season, and we'll see what happens.
That's fair. And Jordan says it's tough to find an honest GM because those guys are always playing a game of poker. And Jonathan is talking about it's hard to imagine Chuck gave Felix his shot in 2023 and Hexall let him rot in the A. But he also mentioned that Danny Briere did get it done by receiving a first-round pick and a better draft year in 2025 instead of 2024. If you guys want to compare drafts, go to Evan's Rev Top 15. He's got you hooked up. And then Brett, he's just emoji fire all the way. So we appreciate it, Brett. Thank you.
James is bringing it, man. James is bringing it. Well, let's just quickly, we only got a few minutes left in our segment here with you, James. Before you go, and again, we appreciate it, guys. We would like to kind of get your feedback. So we're going to be at the draft. Well, not Pawel. His wife's going to make him stay home and take care of the kid. So in the meantime, I'm heading down to Vegas for it. I've got it all set up so we can be there. However, there's always a show now at the draft, and this might be the last in-person draft that we're also dealing with. However, do you think that there's going to be some movement at the draft this year in the offseason? Because where are they? They're not going to be trying to tank next year. Obviously, they've taken a different approach because Torts has got some great miles out of all these players, young players, hardworking players. These guys remind me. Let's go back. If we can remember in the late 80s, I think of Pele Eklund, and I think of when Rick Tocchet was there, and some of those guys, Dave Poulin, they were horses. They were checking, they were connect, and a lot of what I watch with the entertainment is around there. So, do you think they're going to surround him? Do you think they're going to be a player and some younger players maybe that they could build for the future this summer? Because I see only 83,000 in cap space right now. And you only got a couple UFAs now. Yeah,
it's definitely going to be something to watch. Usually when you have first-round picks, you're like, okay, great. We can get a good young player. And they still can. As you probably know, Evan, this draft is not as deep as let's say last year's, for example.
Yeah.
If the Flyers make the playoffs, they're looking at two, back-end first-round picks. They own Florida's as well, which – has the potential to be the 32nd overall pick, So maybe we could see a deal. Maybe we're seeing evidence of that already with the Chikrin deal. Maybe they're kind of kicking the tires now and potentially working something out for over the summer. Chikrin's got another year left. Maybe it doesn't make so much sense to do now. Maybe when you have, the off season and the draft, when all the fun stuff goes down, maybe that's more of a summer trade. So, the Flyers want high-end draft picks. The organization lacks high-end talent. After Michkov, as it's been well documented in your comments section, Cutter Gauthier was moved. He was a high-end offensive talent. So I would say, that it could be a possibility that maybe they move on from these first-round picks if they can bring back a player, let's say, of Jacob Chikrin's caliber, 25-year-old, potentially top-pairing defenseman. Yeah, I would say that's absolutely a potential possibility.
Oh, you're muted yourself there, Pawel.
I apologize. That's
I
it's
can't
great. Sorry.
even handle your own voice.
I'm running too many things at once. Jordan says he's going to crash your event, so keep an eye out for Jordan because he's going to tackle you when you're on the floor for the NHL draft. Now I know that there's been so much news not only around the Flyers but around the NHL that we wanted to quickly get your thoughts on Sean Couturier being named 20th captain in the franchise history and what he brings in terms of leadership on and off the ice for the franchise.
Well, first and foremost, the guy deserves it. He's been a Flyer since he was 18 years old. I believe he's 31 now. I could double check that, but he's seen it all. He's 31, so he's seen it all with this organization. He's been here through some of the best times when they've had those playoff series against Pittsburgh years back now, and then he was here through some of the worst times. He's put his time in. He's one of the best defensive centers in the NHL. Won a Selke Trophy. Can still play. So the first word that comes into my mind now is adversity, and the guy's faced a lot of adversity. He hasn't played hockey in 2 years until this season, and it's funny because it only took him a couple weeks to get up to speed, and he looked like the old Sean Couturier. He had multiple back surgeries, and so just to see him persevere through that, and it was I think we all gave him a little leeway, like, all right, Coots, it might take you a little while to get going here, but Tortorella, I think, demanded, like, hey, this is the player that we know you are. This is what we need, and this is what we want. And Couturier answered the bell. He's deserving. He deserves it. And I think we're all really happy for him. We just, it's a little bit late in the season now. He might be losing his legs a little bit, so it's we'll see. Hopefully, you can find him again and get going here.
Well, that's great.
A lot of time off too, right?
We're gonna finish off here with one question each before we let you go. We appreciate your time. And again, people, if you're looking, James, they can find you at your Twitter handle at Jim Ike HW. You're the president and host of Flyers HW and the scout for Fan Life Hockey. Is there anywhere else you want people to kind of go check you out, check out your material, where they can follow you or connect with you in any sort of way?
Yeah, sure. So we have a site, hwhockey.net. You can also find my work over on Dopper Prospects for the Flyers and Islanders. There are prospects there. And the easiest place to find me is on Twitter, at JimMikeHW, which you already got there.
Awesome. We'll share that link in the thing. Evan, I'll let you go with one more question before I finish off with a very hard-hitting question.
No, sounds good. Okay, well, this is not going to be a hard-hitting question for you. Just trying to get your take. So you're following the Flyers, and you know that they're not going to be making it this season. Tell us your two predictions that you see going into the Stanley Cup Finals this year between the West and the East.
Ooh, so it's hard to bet against Edmonton, isn't it? The way they've been playing. I think we were all surprised with the start they had this year, but there's something different about them, right? Pawel, you guys are Edmonton guys. There's something different about Edmonton, and I think I'm rooting for them a little bit, to tell you the truth. And out east, it's a little tougher, I think, because it's not because I'm a Flyers fan either, and I hate New York, but there's something about New York that I just don't trust. The Flyers played them a couple weeks ago, and I felt should have won the game. The Flyers should have beaten them both times this year. I think they outshot them like 80-50 in both games combined. Something about the Rangers I don't trust. Out east, I'm going Florida or Toronto. I would like to see Toronto, and how cool would that be to see a Canadian Stanley Cup final?
That would blow a lot of people's minds, good and bad.
I don't think Bettman and the NHL wants an all-Canadian final with only 7 Canadians.
That would break Canada.
Yeah, I do not think it would break American fans, though, man. And so I like just throw a shout out to everybody. So right now, actually, we have far more tonight coming from Pennsylvania, and we got more coming out of Boston right now in our viewership. But it's amazing. We haven't even talked about you guys, but tons of you in Nevada. And so just looking at all you good Americans watching two Canadian guys just talk hockey, I know it doesn't matter who's in the final. You guys just want good hockey.
So my hard-hitting question is, why is Gritty the worst and craziest thing ever in the NHL, but also the best, and why he should be the second to receive the Stanley Cup when the Flyers finally win the cup again?
There are some fans that actually would be behind that, to tell you the truth. So Gritty, it's funny because when he first came out, Philly was kind of like, what the heck is this guy, right? And then as soon as we saw Pittsburgh fans starting to, kind of make fun of him, we were like, oh, you can't make fun of our mascot here. We love Gritty now. He's something, isn't he? That's what I'll say. He's something. He entertains the crowd and whatnot, but he's a character, that's for sure.
I think it's just fun to see the creative nature take shape, and whoever was the artist or artists of designing that costume, outfit, whatever it may be. I think it's pretty cool because you rarely see it. You think, oh, your typical like Orca or Hunter here in Edmonton, but this was all over the place. And I think I'm surprised there's no copycats for Halloween, or unless there are in Philadelphia. I could be wrong.
There are. They try to replicate it, that's for sure, and they end up looking a little bit more bizarre than Gritty already does. But yeah, they try.
Well, thanks so much, James. We really appreciate you taking the time here tonight. Guys, a big thank you. It's been an honor having you on. Appreciate it. If you guys want to go check him out on his Twitter handle, follow his podcast. They got some great content. And by the way, they're like us. They go overtime. Thanks, Jack, for joining in. We should have just had you both on here, and you could have just kept your show going. Right?
That's a good idea. Maybe we'll have to do that in the future.
There you go.
We would appreciate that. And remember to check out the website, hrwhockey.net. So thank you so much for being on the show. We hope all the best in your podcast endeavors and everything else. And we hope to have you and your partner, Jack, hopefully on in the future. And we hope you guys and the Philadelphia Flyers have a very deep playoff run. And maybe there will be something at the end of June for you guys to talk about.
I'd like to wish you and hope you get an early Christmas gift for next year by a first-round playoff opportunity and a win.
That would be sweet, wouldn't it?
First-round win. I mean, that would be – you guys would be crazy. You'd be flipping cars in Philadelphia.
Oh, my God. They're dying for it down here. So it's funny because a lot of fans these days, they don't really know what Flyers playoff hockey's about, because it's been 10 years since – they've experienced it. So there actually is a generation of fans that doesn't know Flyers playoff hockey, and it's a damn shame, to be honest with you.
True. So true.
But I want to thank you guys for having me on. This was a real treat. I appreciate you guys thinking of me, and hopefully we can do it again. I'm sure we will do it again. We'll get you
Absolutely, on our show. Man. Let's do it.
100%.
Yeah. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you and all the best.
All right, guys. Take care.
Cheers. Awesome stuff. So let's just do a recap there. So if you guys are wanting to follow Flyers content, we'll put the links up again so you can follow James and be able to check out their stuff that they have going on over at the Flyers HW so with him and Jack. And again, they just got off the show, so he was just zipping on shortly.
Appreciate it. Yeah. He was a rock star.
Philly.
Such a great job.
Yeah.
All right, Evan, we've got a lot to talk about because trade deadline seems to have moved up 24 hours, and there's been a lot. But before we get to everything NHL related, is there anything else you wanted to chat about beyond around the rink, perchance?
Yeah, man, all the stuff going on. So one thing I did want to, and we don't need to go to a segment on it right now, is I just want to put it on. There's a Gavin McKenna watch right now, future 2026 going. The guy's going to be about to set 100 points. He's at a 1.51. I want you guys to realize he's a 16-year-old kid playing in the WHL. 16 years old. The only person he's come close to at 16, just under points per game, but he only played, I believe, Bedard played about 28 games because it was a COVID season, so he didn't get enough games. to count, but to be able to play at least 55 or more games, that is Gavin McKenna. He's the number one all time in the WHL at 16 to be able. So I believe he's at 86 points right now already at 1.51 points per game.
Jordan says, Evan, he's from the WHL.
30 goals. Absolutely. Yeah, the good old WHL. There you go. And it's a Yukon boy. So,
all right. So it's been a busy day for a lot of managers. A lot of people are getting into the trades. Let's dissect a few of them that have happened. So,
okay, you start doing that. I got to go grab my drink. I got to get some more.
All right.
You start opening up. Okay.
So the first trade that we had take place a few days ago, but we're just reporting on it now because we're a little bit on the delayed side because we're only here every Wednesday nights here at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We bring you our live information about what's been happening, but it was Anthony Mantha going over to the Vegas Golden Knights for a second and a fourth. The other big trade in the NHL today, Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick going over in a three-way trade with Edmonton and Tampa Bay. And we've got Anaheim getting a first, conditional fourth, and a seventh. And I think the fourth, it's a fifth, it becomes a fourth, depending on how far and how well Edmonton does in the playoffs. But that's where we're at with those two trades. So your thoughts on the Edmonton Anaheim trade for Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick?
So I think they got the guys that they wanted. They wanted Henrique. I'm not really impressed with Henrique's face-off value on the third line. But he's been playing up, and maybe some of that face-off percentages. Some of you guys have probably followed him even closer than I have. If you're a Ducks fan or you're just an Henrique fan, he's a great two-way defenseman. It's going to really prepare them for the playoffs. Carrick is going to be that fourth-line centerman for them. It's interesting. So Henrique is more of a left wing. That's predominantly, but he's been playing a lot of center. But they'll actually mark him on all your stat lines as a left wing. But he can play both wings. He's much like a lot of the other players who will slip in and stuff. So you're looking at your third and fourth centers. So that means you move McLeod, right? So McLeod's going to be able to either move to the wing on the third, or he's going to be able to move up there on that second line around it.
Well, Jordan says he's 53% playing for the first line center for the shitty Ducks. So, and Anaheim is struggling, and he is.
Yeah. So I actually, it was on the PK. I'm actually referring to. My apology. Thank you, Jordan. So he's actually 46 point something percent.
Get Jordan on the show and get rid of you.
Yeah, well,
but good for Tampa Bay because they do have that LTIR from Mikhail Sergachev. And of course, there's that conditional fifth becomes a fourth.
Hang on, did you just jump? We were talking about the Oilers trade, and you jumped to Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay's part of this trade. What are you talking about?
Oh, I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that.
Oh well, just like last week, you're just not paying attention.
Some people work for a living and have to work all day long, half an hour before the podcast.
Okay, well let's jump over to the other side because
before we do that, though, I do want to say that there's a lot of Oiler fans freaking out over the first round draft pick. This is why I agree and I disagree. Number one, it's not really that important if you're not getting a better player yet. Yeah. However, this does mean that their first round is out of the way to get a higher ranked player for top 4D and or the second line. So that's my problem here. I am worried that is it. They're not going to have a bigger move, everything depth. So I don't think Holland really got a great haul. It's because of the retention. But the fact is that should have been on Anaheim. You got a high number. If you went on load that player and get something, it should have been your retention. But
he's coming in for a little over $1 million here. So I think that's a pretty good amount. It is a slight overpay, not overall, but I still think Edmonton got the guy they wanted, the two guys, and you have some depth in your bottom pairing. So we'll see what it is. Zilstra says ganging Vegas. So we'll get into that in just a sec. But we've got a trade with the Rangers in Seattle where Alex Wenberg is heading over to the New York Rangers in exchange for a 2024 second-round pick and the 2025 fourth-round pick that originally came from Dallas. Your thoughts? And there's 50% retained salary by Seattle. Your thoughts on this? Because we know that we talked about it last week where Rangers were kind of looking at some places. You mentioned it last episode that Wenberg could be a potential person
Great
that
deal.
they picked up. And
Great deal for, and Winberg's have a little bit of a down year this year compared to the previous year. Last year would have been a great time for him, just like Eberle. But the Kraken have a little bit more time. This is a great deal. I think this works perfect for the Rangers. They get a little bit more depth without going crazy. They get a good two-way player in this play. So I actually am impressed that the Rangers got this done. I'm interested, though, that the Kraken didn't actually try to kind of hold on a little bit longer and get a little bit more. But
yeah, they're kind of in that middle of the pack. We don't know what could happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, Ron Francis is playing the long game here, and they've got a few UFAs coming up, including Jordan Eberle. So there's definitely going to be some interest there. Now, I want to get to the big one that was announced, and thus far, I don't know if the details have been announced, but it sounds like Vegas will be acquiring Noah Hannafin from the Calgary Flames. We don't know the return yet, unless it's been posted. You guys can let us know in the comments section. But your thoughts on Vegas, given that Mark Stone is out potentially until the postseason. He may return in the postseason. And with Jack Eichel potentially returning, but it also sounds like Alec Martinez is potentially on LTIR. Your thoughts on Vegas loading up again and going for the big fish?
Hey, this comes down to what Leah Hextall said a couple seasons ago coming on. She already knew that the WHL general manager, Kelly McCrimmon, man, is an ace. Edmonton tried to get him before they had gone with their boy in Ken Holland. They knew he wasn't. He was staying in Vegas. He has continued. He is shrewd. He may be rude, but he is one playoff machine boy. He finds the way to get this team together. They started good. They've been playing 500 hockey. So good on him. I don't know what Calgary's doing. So right now, what I got earlier before we came on the show, some of you might have newest updates. So I saw that Daniel Mirmanov, a defenseman, that's a prospect right now. So I believe he might be still in the A. There looks to be possibly some retention, which is interesting because they didn't want to take retention on originally with Markstrom. So that's a whole other story we'll get to later. But yeah, they're filling it. And so I do like to say to people that are worried about Vegas and the cap and all that, I think they'd rather have Mark Stone right now playing because I do not think he's back for the first game of the playoffs. I think they'll have to get through the first round or close to the halfway through the first round before he's even going to be available. What's your take on this, man? Hannafin going there, and they're negotiating a contract also.
Yes.
That's what you were
which
talking
was
about.
previously offered by Calgary. I believe it was like 52 million, like 8 by
it was 8 something,
8 by 6, 8 by 7, something like that. 6 point something.
Yeah, but he turned it down.
I think they're deep. I think Vegas is going for it. They could potentially repeat. They're strong, and I think they have an opportunity to really make an impact. Yeah. They've struggled in the last few games here, but I think they're going to be a threat once the postseason begins. Go ahead.
So having said that, let's just carry on a little bit further from this. So I'm trying to figure out how they're going to fit everything into the cap. Not right now for the season, but like to be able to sign him and do all this other stuff. They're okay to sign him right now, but they're going to have to move players. And so there is now rumors swirling out there that they are in talks with Pittsburgh to unload a defenseman over to Pittsburgh. And so that will be interesting if something's going to be happening because right now Pittsburgh, of course, we've always talked about some different teams for Pittsburgh. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Nashville, Vancouver, Florida, Edmonton, and Vegas. Edmonton's being said by Frank Saravelli that Edmonton has nothing to do with it. Other people just don't think that they have what it takes to pull off. They could take next year's first round draft pick for Getzel if they really wanted to. I honestly, if you already did what you did, you gave up a first this year. I see Edmonton trying something more, but I still look for them getting a second right wing. But yeah, so Vegas has got something else up their sleeve. They're not going to be sitting at. They still got more to go.
Yeah. So Troll Jones, I don't know if that's your real name or if that's just your handle. Flyers got a first for Walker. What's your take? So we did talk a little bit about it earlier with our guest, James, but I did want to get your thoughts kind of with this trade for Colorado. Because for me, I think Flyers did very well here, but also giving Johansson up to the Flyers and immediately being put on waivers. Because he's still got one more year of that cap hit for next year. So your thoughts on both that trade and Colorado's take on it?
Okay. Can I just come back? I just saw a tweet here. This is really interesting. I never even thought about this right now in Vegas. So they got Theodore, Petrangelo, Martinez, Haig, and McNabb. And now they have Hannafin. Like that's their 6. Oh my God. That's crazy.
But I just said that, what's his name? Martinez is out, LTIR.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yeah, that's right too. Yeah. So he's been off for a while. Is there an expectation timeline for him to come back?
Well, if it's LTIR, it's going to be more than 10 games or 24 days. So it's possible. That he could be out. But I didn't hear more details. So you guys can let me know. And Phil Jones is saying it was a salary dump, 100%, because they don't need a center. I mean, you could, but it looks like
they got their first.
Go through waivers. I don't think he'll pass through. The one team that I thought low-key may try to go for Johansson is Boston. But unless Boston's working on a deal with Lindholm, I don't think they're going to go for Johansson. I just thought, but Colorado, so they did that, and they also traded for Casey Middlestat out of Buffalo for Bowen Byram. Your thoughts on that? Because Bowen Byram, although injury-ridden,
I didn't even get to answer the Philadelphia one yet. We're still talking.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm throwing you on
I know there's so much going on right now in such limited time. Just quickly on the Sean Walker, I know a couple of you have come in a little bit later. We had James Icavoni on, and he was just kind of talking a little bit about that. So we just said Sean Walker got a first because of the salary dump. Otherwise, they might not have actually got that first round draft. So that's one of the reasons.
It does help Colorado because they most likely will face against a central opponent, and you've got Cale Makar, Josh Manson, and now you've got Walker there. So I know he's interchangeable, but that's a good right hand side for Colorado.
And this is interesting. So you talked about Colorado, so they unload the contract, and it frees up now so they can bring Casey Middlestat in, who was trajecting really well in Buffalo. So they now got their center. They needed that second line center. They're picking a great player. They
miss Kadri. They really do. That was a big
loss. Buffalo now has Bowen Byron. So, I mean, Buffalo is loading up at least on the back end, if anything, and they get all this young talent up front. They just need a couple good, solid veterans. I think
they need goaltending. I think they really need goaltending.
But it's not just goaltending. It's not just goaltending.
I agree. There's definitely some changes that need to be made in the offseason. Now, one thing a big factor I want to just get your quick thoughts on this, and then we'll get to your point. A big factor for Colorado, Evan. Yeah. Does Gabriel Landeskog return for game 1 of the playoffs or at any point in the first series, regardless of who they face?
Yes, I do. I do believe that. Okay. I believe that he'll be back anywhere from 3 to 4 games before, or he could be as well as up into the.
Well, they won't be able to with the cap he has. It'll be tough.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So then we already know what's going to happen. He's not going to play to the first game of the playoffs.
You guys can let us know your thoughts on Landeskog in Colorado. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It is coincidental, isn't it? Even like Stone coming back in the very first game. It just so happens that every year Kucherov or like a player can come back. You can't tell me there's not manipulation going on with doctors somehow. The NHL has to do something. I don't have an issue within the rules, but it is very convenient. And I feel like it should not be the NHL itself. There should be a private paid for company that actually represents the entire league, not the NHL, but all the other teams, like a players association kind of.
I think it should be like a percentage of the salary cap that you can use towards other players.
Yeah. Well, I think playoffs, the salary cap should continue. That's what I think.
That's fair. I don't mind having a bit of relief like they do in the summer where you could be 10% over the cap. If you have something similar, that's perfectly fine. But
I'm not okay with playing 10% over. I think it needs to be straight up. And however, I do think that you can keep a player out of the playoffs. So if they're injured and you want to bring them back, but they're going to put you over, you can choose not to play them and it wouldn't count against the cap. So, for example, Mark Stone or Kucherov couldn't have came back then, right? If they put them over, or they're going to have to take someone else off and put them on not a waiver, but like say a playoff, sitting them on the side. Anyway, that's something totally different.
Now the trade go ahead. I'll let you go.
No, you go ahead.
So now the other trade that happened, kind of it snowballed this whole effect, was Vladimir Tarasenko heading over to the Florida Panthers.
That's amazing.
For a conditional 4th pick, 3rd if they win the Cup, the Panthers, and a 2025 3rd-round pick. This is, Evan, Steve Staios' first trade as the new general manager of the Ottawa Senators. Your thoughts on the trade, and what does it look like for both sides? Knowing that Tarasenko did have a no-trade clause in place for a few teams. So
So
it did have to be.
what I'd like to know is when they got Tarasenko, what did they pay for him? Do we actually have a record of that?
He was assigned as a free agent last year for 5.
Oh, that's right.
Spirit. And Joseph Wool is also commenting, already crying, go Knights, go. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I'm going to say one thing. People are complaining about cap subvention, and it doesn't look pretty, but they're using it to their advantage, and there's no issues. And if the NHL has approved of the trade, which all trades have to go through Gary Bettman, then clearly they're doing it right. And, I think it was a doctor that spoke with Elliot Freeman about the broken or ruptured spleen for Mark Stone. That is a very painful thing to go through. That's not something easy. So, people complaining about it, but if he can get back in time, it happens. But yeah, your thoughts on Tarasenko?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of looking at that, right? So you got a 24th, 4th round. So let's just go early.
Condition, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's actually from Florida, so it's conditional. But let's just say you get it. Let's go with this, right? Florida's a pretty good team. They're loading up. That's really good for them. So let's just say you get that 4th round. So you are talking, let's just call it 30 times 4, 60. You got 125th to 130th pick. And then when you're dealing with the 25 the following year, 3rd round, so you're dealing probably at least with a 90th overall. That's not a lot of anything for Tarasenko. You couldn't have got like a good prospect. There's something to bring into your system, someone to compete. I think this was a really weak move. They just were unloading some cap, maybe financially, because the owner's like going broke already. He's trying to pay off a team and it's not winning. I don't know. I feel bad for Ottawa Senator fans.
We got Go Caps Go, which I wanted to quickly make a mention for the Washington Capitals because they're kind of retooling quickly and well. So Go Caps Go, but he also saying good night. So thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'll get to what happened with the Washington Capitals, but a troll is asking all trades have to go through Bettman. That's already sounds corrupt. Not Bettman per se. It is through the NHL offices is what I meant, right? So the legal team to make sure everything adjusts. As for the Caps, I do want to get your quick thoughts on Rasmus Sandin, who was traded from Toronto, from Toronto there, just signed an extension, and he has signed for, let me just take a look, I think it's 5 years, 4.6. He's a right shot defenseman, young guy. And Go Caps, our next stream is next Wednesday, every 7 p.m. every Wednesday, Mountain Standard Time. So depending on where you are, and we appreciate you coming in. We want to know your thoughts. We love to hear from Caps fans because there's always stuff going on. Ken Ovechkin beat the record. Do they get rid of Nick Dowd? There's a lot. Jordan says that the Knights cheating to get another cup. If you ain't cheating, you ain't winning, right? And thoughts on the Mantha trade. So we already talked about it, but I brought it up. Your thoughts, Evan, on the Mantha trade to Vegas, because that's another winger they picked up. For a conditionals or for a 2nd and a 4th.
Yeah, isn't that and again, I mean, I get the Washington doing it, they're making some moves, but you've got to think, I get the 2nd round picks, but it's just like, what's a 4th going to do for you? What's your percentages of getting something? I get that they want to move on from Mantha, but this is making it harder and harder for Ovechkin to actually get to the place he wants to get to in his scoring. The team is just weakening the team more and more. I am shocked there is not more prospects within systems that are being traded in some of these trades. There's obviously something that's happening. It's in the air. The Kool-Aid everyone's drinking is, grab a 4th round, grab a 5th round, grab a 3rd round. As I've said, I'd gather 2, 3 3rd rounds, get myself an extra 2nd. I take my 2 seconds and try and get into an upper 1st. I take my upper 1st with my own 2nd or 3rd from the next year, and I trade it in to get higher with my 1st in the later rounds and move it up to get my other one. And then I get in the top 20 because that's where you want to be, man, in the draft.
That's fair.
I am not with people on the I'm obviously not with the GMs, but let me just say I am not an NHL GM, and there's a reason I'm not an NHL GM. I'll never be paid.
You're an armchair GM. That's what you are.
No, I am a 2 guys in hockey talk GM.
That's
I get to talk hypotheticals.
Zilch just saying Caps sneaky getting younger slowly. It's going to take some time. They are one of the older, slower teams. Trolls saying again, legal team, definitely corrupt. Effing lawyers ruin everything. We have some lawyers that will probably appreciate that. And Caps said good trade for I think the Mantha thing. I agree. I actually thought that Mantha would come over to Edmonton, given his history and relationship with Ken Holland. but it looks like, and I could be wrong. Your thoughts on potentially Buchnevich still being out there as a potential player for Vegas, if not somewhere else?
Okay, so I'm not sure. So I've seen a couple like from 3 different places, and I'm just going now amongst the insiders, guys like Kevin Weeks, and you talk to Darren Dragers, LA Friedmans, Frank Sarabellis, Chris Stevensons, and stuff like that. And so right now, I'm not sure who had sent it. I was trying to get my information together. The talk is with everything and the rapid stuff going on, one of them had mentioned a 50% they're willing to now retain on Buchnevich. And I wonder, is Edmonton still in? If they can make a trade, so they'd have to take another player back of some sort with some prospects and maybe next year's first round draft pick. So they just unload it and they did this year's and then they take next year's. But I just have the sneaky feeling it's an Eastern team that where he can end up. I have that. Now
he has a great first name. That's all I'm going to say.
I wonder why.
He's a winner in my books, no matter what.
So another interesting point here is that the Bruins. The truth is it sounds like this is it for DeBrusk. This could be Jake DeBrusk last season in Boston, and you wonder, is there a potential trade in place here if they want to go over to Vancouver? You mentioned Lindholm. We know Getzel, the Vancouver is interested. There's a connection.
They're aggressively pushing for him, given his relationship with Jim Rutherford.
Yeah, absolutely with it. So there's that part. The other part is right now, New Jersey is making a push for Allmark. So now I would think that would be an off-season thing, but we know New Jersey wants to get in the playoffs, and they need to get solid goaltending right now and start to get some scoring. And so one of the players talking about going out is Holtz, Alexander Holtz.
Oh, that's a good young prospect.
But if you're picking up Allmark, would that not be? They want to be competitive, right?
I think Bruins. Does he play center, or I thought he's a D?
Holtz. I believe Holtz is a winger, actually.
Okay, because what's his name? Boston needs centers, right? That's their big thing. They're going through the lull.
They don't have a lot to trade with, right?
Yeah, they don't. They don't have a lot.
But if they could unload Allmark with Holtz comes in at a cheaper price. Could they then?
They don't have their first, second, or third this year at all.
And could they then pick up Lindholm because they can actually have some money to make a run this year with a good team, right? I don't know if it's the right idea. The other thing is Chicago. There is talk around Chicago with the Toronto a wrap, and there is rumors. So all you Maple Leaf fans have probably heard around this about Colton Parayko for possibly Brody and Robertson. That's another rumor that's kind of exploding. I don't know how legit that one is. I'm debating that one from the circles. It's only been one source that's kind of been out there around that. I always don't like to mention some sources. I don't always give them credit. I don't trust that one, but it is an interesting story. But if that is true and Parayko is available, I'm surprised, though, then Edmonton is not trying to grab that one.
He's got quite a few more years left, though, at a high ticket price.
Take out your first for next year.
$6.5 million, I want to say, for another few years. So
he does, but I mean, if you could unload a player that's at a higher contract that can take you for the next few years, and with the cap increase, I think that and some retention, who knows? Loser, but I can't see Parayko going though. I just can't. So
okay, here's
I'm looking at the time, man. We've done just like they did earlier today.
If they played in the NHL, who would have a better hockey look? The Ginger from Spin Doctors or Michael Stipe for REM? I don't know who the Ginger from Spin Doctors is, but I think I know Michael Stipe from REM, and I'm going to go with him. But your thoughts? I got to look this up. I don't know the Ginger.
Well, I'm going to go with the. Yeah, well, I'm going to go with the Ginger. I have no idea who the Ginger is, but Ginger always wins, man, because they got tempers. The red wins. I don't know.
Zilch says
is he the Ginger because he's got red hair?
I'm not too sure who that is. Oh, this guy. Okay, I will.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know. How is their puck handling abilities? Can they dangle?
Okay,
and finally,
we're gonna have to call it a wrap.
Final thoughts. It sounds like Martin Popisil of Calgary Flames has been suspended for 3 games on his dangerous hit on Vince Dunn in the Seattle game. So I wasn't surprised that he was going to get suspension. It's just I think it's a first time offense for him. So, but there's definitely that, and I'm sure we're all going to have a civil discussion about how correct the NHLPA safety player safety got it right. So, but Evan, any final thoughts before we wrap up and before we got one more full day of the trade deadline tomorrow, or 2 more days technically? See, my mind is all over the place. It's by Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, we're losing you for a second. We got you.
2 more days. Well, I feel sorry for all those guys that are doing 4-hour shows. I'm glad we didn't make a commitment to trade deadline day. I'd rather do trade deadline. Back? Am I back?
You guys are great. Cheers, boys. Great show. Thank
Am
you,
I
Troll
back?
Jones. If that's the real
Am I
name.
back?
We
Hello?
appreciate it. You're in and
Hello?
out. Evan's having some technical difficulties. We're going to try to get him back here. Evan, we got you back. You're kind of zoning out on us. We lost him for a second, so we appreciate it. Remember, guys, we are here every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube, on Twitter, hashtag X. You can find me at hockey_2 or Evan at REVNEV. Yeah, Zylstra, it is 36-hour till deadline. This is what happens when you work overtime nonstop. You always have someone there. It's been a ring-a-ding-ding-dandy show. We appreciate you guys. Remember to like, share, subscribe. We appreciate everything you've done for us, for wherever you're tuning into. We love it. We hope Evan comes right back in, but it seems like he's having a hard time logging in. And yeah, it's been fun. And we'll be back next week with more wrap-up. We appreciate it. Again, you guys, we love seeing from you. We love hearing from you. Remember to reach out. And in the meantime and in between time, keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe. Thank you.
Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche. Done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tide. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
We'll be
Every
He
time
didn't get fired. He didn't get fired. No, he didn't get fired. He never got his contract renewed.